The King of the Pirates is the title given to the person considered the most free in the world. Freedom and will are obviously two of the most important concepts at the heart of One Piece, and Luffy's always been the embodiment of that freedom, eating what he wants, protecting his friends, and not letting anyone stand in his way. But I think the most interesting thing about his freedom is how it's been chipped away at each reveal of Joyboy, Nika, and Gold Roger. Because if you really think about it, we're dealing with the age-old philosophical question of free will and determinism. How free is Luffy really? Can freedom or free will exist in a world that has a predetermined outcome? The world in One Piece is not only shaped by a currently corrupt world government, it's specifically shaped by the planning and meticulous setup of those who came before. Gold Roger, Joyboy, and Nika have all left their marks through history, expressing a distinguished form of freedom, all while laying the groundwork for the next adventurers to follow in their footsteps, shaping a grand plan. But we also know that Luffy isn't one to follow plans. Over and over, Luffy breaks plans and makes his own way. In Water 7, in Punk Hazard, he's constantly making his allies frustrated with his inability to just stick to the plan. Luffy has managed to keep a sense of free will that most protagonists would have lost by now, especially in a story that's driven by fate, inherited will, and lost history that echoes through time. But Luffy does this by doing what he does best, remaining blissfully ignorant of his true purpose and role, by falling asleep during backstory reveals, and refusing to believe that he's anyone but Luffy. Fate? Destiny? Nah, where's the meat? I'm hungry. Other characters in the story are allowed to recognize him as Joyboy and Nika and the inheritor of Roger's will, but he remains confused at these ideas. He's always just Luffy. And by extension, no matter what anyone tells him about his fruit, to him, it's still the Gum Gum fruit. And whether Shanks left it on purpose or not, Luffy is the one who decided to eat it. In this way, even in a deterministic world where every effect may be predetermined by every previous cause, even in a story written by an author who's meticulously planned the bulk of this epic from the start and has foreshadowed many of the coming events, in a presentation that includes a fourth wall breaking narrator, Luffy is still able to maintain his personal sense of freedom that we can follow along with and believe as the audience. But how long can his bliss last? Joyboy lived 800 years ago, and for some reason he had to apologize to the world. Vegapunk has told us explicitly that we cannot know who was good and who was bad, but that something terrible happened during the Void Century. We're clearly led to think that the world government is at fault. What if the truth is a lot more complicated than that? What is it that made Roger laugh? Why does Rayleigh tell us that Roger turned himself in because he saw the inevitable end to their journey? Just because of his illness? It seems like it was more than that. Everyone on Roger's crew quietly disbanded and went their separate ways, but they remain with a heavy knowledge of the truth of the Void Century and what the One Piece is. The Straw Hats were given direct opportunity to learn exactly what happened in the Void Century. However, Rayleigh suggests that they remain without this knowledge as they continue their own journey, so they can learn and see for themselves along the way. It'll all make sense to you soon enough, he tells them. Luffy passionately refuses to hear any more information about the Void Century or the existence of the One Piece, reminding his crew that this is their journey to find out, that they may as well not even be pirates if they were to spoil the ending here. This is the key to Luffy maintaining his freedom. He is not allowed to learn the truth of the world, because doing so would allow him to break from his path of destiny. He must remain free in a deterministic world. He has to remain not knowing the plan in order to walk it freely. But eventually, once the One Piece is found and the true history of the Void Century has been revealed, the truth will become unavoidable. So what happens then? Because authors have long argued that strong, epic stories should have a sense of inevitability in hindsight, that events should happen for a reason, and should foreshadow the major story beats, providing satisfying and deliberate pieces to a larger puzzle that comes together in a full picture by the end of the story. This gives us a sense of purpose and meaning, a bird's-eye view into the story that would be impossible for any single character to perceive, but which gives us as the reader a great sense of immersion and involvement as we actively feel resolved that the pieces will finally fit together nicely. And often, authors have played with the idea of main characters learning their own future. What does this knowledge do? Does this allow them to break free from their path, or does it inevitably lock them into a single fate by learning that knowledge in the first place? Like in Oedipus Rex, upon being told he's destined to kill his father and marry his mother, Oedipus flees those he believes to be his real parents, in order to prevent the prophecy, only to fulfill it instead by acting on incomplete knowledge, mistaking the wrong people as his true family, and unknowingly stepping into the very future he tried to escape. Learning of a prophecy and attempting to avoid it is what locks fate into place. And if you're familiar with Isaac Asimov's Foundation series, This is a galactic science fiction story in which a mathematician, Harry Seldon, develops the field of psychohistory, a predictive form of social mathematics in which he can foresee the rise and fall of the galactic empire into the distant future. In order to help guide society through this turbulence, he creates the Foundation, leaving behind messages that act as a sort of retrospective thermometer during key moments called the Seldon Crises, whereas Oracle confirms to Foundation members that events have unfolded along the expected trajectory. The big twist, spoiler alert, is that Harry Seldon knew all along that he could not give strict direction to those seeking insight into the future. The math clarifies that the larger picture must remain unknown to the populace, because the model collapses when individuals act with knowledge of the future. Individuals must maintain free will with ignorance of the larger picture in order to play out their lives in a statistically predictable fashion. The point of the Foundation, it turns out, is statistical and predictive only at large scales, where individuals become probabilities and average out over time into an expected outcome. As long as there are no special chosen ones in the model to influence the math, history just moves along in a predictable fashion. What Seldon cannot foresee or calculate, however, is the unpredictable individual who has the ability to override free will of others around him, manipulating emotions directly and controlling other individuals on mass scale. The mule, in the story, is this statistical anomaly, the only thing that can threaten the trajectory of the plan. Free will itself turns out to be not a threat after all. Free will is algorithmic and formulaic and built into Seldon's model with accuracy, but the break comes from one individual who distinctly has the ability to remove the free will of others. That is the real threat. Conceptually, this is saying that free will in a determined system still acts predictably at large scales, but not if that free will is removed by another force. The crushing of multiple wills by one individual is the only thing that offsets the prophecy, which aims to save the empire by allowing and insisting on free will remaining in the system. Corruption begins when free will is removed. In a way, this idea is mirrored in One Piece. The idea is that forces like Emu or Blackbeard are threats to the peace and stability of the world by acting as overriders of the free will of others, while acting within their own. Asimov's series would argue that freedom, and individuals like Luffy, who are the embodiment of a sort of predictable form of freedom, are the positive forces which ultimately guide society in the right direction, while manipulative forces which remove individuals' free will entirely, like Emu's Domi Reversi, are the single most threatening elements in the grand scheme of a long-running society. Mind control, emotional manipulation, and the ability to overwrite will are the most dominating, threatening, and unpredictable elements that exist.
Alright, today's the day you lose your free will.
Characters like Blackbeard serve as a counterpoint to the idea that unobstructed freedom in lawless anarchy is any kind of solution for our problems in the world. It's because of bad actors like Blackbeard and Emu that have ill intent that Garp remains justified in his decision to remain with the Marines and uphold the law and seek justice, despite the corruption of the leadership of the world government, which he, by the way, vocally and fearlessly disagrees with, forming sword to maintain his own free will within the system. The existence of free, bad pirates who really do plunder and set a bad example of freedom are the whole reason that Marines can remain justified to serve a lawful order. The problem is their system is already corrupted top-down. This is something Garp would rather see disintegrated internally without burning down the entire system, because he believes free will should exist within the limits of law, something I'm sure many of us can see as a flawed argument as long as laws are not upheld equally for all, especially in the case of the world nobles, celestial dragons, holy knights, and Emu, who have all proven themselves as morbidly destructive toxic forces in the world of One Piece. Oh, and this is totally not political, by the way. It's increasingly apparent that Garp must be assisted by those outside the system in order to overwrite the internal damage. It cannot be corrected from within the system which supports it fully, and requires revolutionaries and well-meaning pirates in order to force global change and turn the world right side up again. Still though, we're left with the question, what does it mean to be the most free? The King of the Pirates must be the most free, but was this title actually given to Roger specifically because he turned away from the One Piece? Is it something the world was not ready for because it allows too much freedom while bad actors still have power? Is it Binks's brew, fermenting with a tag that says do not open until a certain date? Is it a rocket ship that allows true freedom and escape from the world as it is? Is it a heart turned to stone separated by the chop chop fruit immortalized by the op fruit? Is it the end of all devil fruit powers? Is it the Holy Grail? It may not really matter what the One Piece is if the only thing that can make Luffy free is to reject whatever it is. He doesn't want to rule anything, he only wants to be free. Perhaps his dream is to take a bite out of the sun. He does like to eat after all. And speaking of the sun, before I end this, I want to throw out a couple of ideas and food for thought. Vegapunk hints that mechanics of devil fruit powers imply the manifestation of dreams, of will made manifest, of desire formed physically. We also see Bonnie achieve a Nika-like state using her age fruit, implying importantly that Luffy may not be the only chosen one, that there may be many, or that devil fruit wills all have the ability to achieve a Nika-like state when used creatively enough. So what do you think? Was Bonnie only able to do it because she was near Luffy? Was she just faking it aesthetically? Or do all devil fruits secretly allow their wielders to achieve a Nika state with the right mindset? You have the free will to leave a comment below letting me know what you think it meant for Bonnie to achieve Nika form in the context of the larger story. And let me know what you think about Luffy's freedom. Can he really be free if he's just following a path laid out before him? Will his freedom really be defined when he finds out the truth and breaks from the cycle, and thus liberating everyone else accordingly? All I know is, as long as I have the freedom to keep consuming and ruminating on One Piece, I'm going to keep doing that, even if it is all part of Oda's grand plan. Thanks for watching.
It's all up to him.
All up to me. How do you stand me?
Because he saw the inevitable end to our journey.